Hey guys, Spirit of the Lie here. In this video, we're going to be talking about the Hindustani's unique unit, the Ghulam. More specifically, I want to look at the comparison that's often made between it and the Eagle Warrior. In a short video I made 6 months ago when the Ghulam first came out, I framed them as a blend of the Huskarl and the Kamyuk, with eagles being mentioned only in passing. But it is a tempting comparison many people pointed out, and one that's only gotten better over time, with a nerf to the Ghulam's HP making the two units even more similar. On the surface, at least, they have a lot in common. They're the only infantry units to cost more gold than food, they both have high pierce armor, they move fast, and even have the same weaponry, making it look like the Ghulam is almost just a reskin. Of course, when we talk about Eagle Warriors, there's really three pretty different ones to think about, as each is specialized with a unique flavor in Imperial Age to buff one of their stats, whether it be attack, armor, or HP. In Castle Age though, aside from Aztecs creating them a bit faster, they're all functionally identical. Side by side, the Ghulam has one more attack, but now the same HP after a recent significant nerf, with fittingly a very similar cost per unit as well, weighted more toward gold than food. In Imperial Age, it would probably be more accurate to say the Elite Ghulam is similar to a baseline Elite Eagle Warrior, without one of the three Civ's specialty Imperial techs. Of course, those techs have a cost, and it's not a small one. Fully upgrading an Eagle Warrior requires not just 1,300 resources for the Elite tech itself, but another 1,200 for any of the American Civ's unique techs, on top of 450 resources for the last infantry armor upgrade. I mention that one specifically because Hindustanis missed that tech, so in a way they're getting their most upgraded version for a bit cheaper, though it also means they end with a bit less armor, and we'll check later how much of a difference that makes in practice. The main takeaway though is Eagle Warriors are significantly more expensive to tech into when everything is considered. In terms of some hidden attributes, in Castle Age the two units move at the same speed, though the Elite Eagle gains a slight speed advantage in Imperial, though I don't consider it that important of an advantage as both can already chase down archers. Where they greatly differ is in their bonus damage, and if anything this is where the comparison breaks down. The Ghulam has a large bonus against archers, reminiscent of a Huskarl, along with bonus damage against eagles and buildings, which are both pretty standard bonuses for infantry unique units. Eagles, on the other hand, have a large bonus against monks, along with some against cavalry, siege, camels, and ships, strangely enough. In fact, there's no overlap in their bonus damage here at all, except in the case of a cavalry archer or camel archer, which span multiple unit types. The Ghulam is also arguably easier to mass, given it's created during Castle Age around 3 times faster, though obviously requiring a castle to be built first. After the Elite Eagle Warrior upgrade though, Eagle's creation time drops significantly, which is a huge hidden improvement in Imperial Age that, even with a few barracks, makes them very easy to spam. The Ghulam also features a unique ability to attack through units, dealing half damage to anything immediately behind their target. I personally like the detail that the Ghulam has a longer spear to indicate this, and it's similar but slightly different than the Kamyuk's longer range. You can see they work in slightly different ways, but they both excel against blobs of enemy units, or especially archers, that are trying to bunch themselves up against a tree line. In a large pitched battle, I'd say the Kamyuk's ability is actually a little stronger though, given it softens out pathing issues and lets more units get in on the action, while all of them are dealing full rather than any half damage. In both cases though, the more of a choke point you have and the larger the battle, the more you'll start to gain an advantage against generic melee units. So that's the side-by-side comparison of what each unit brings to the table, but now let's try to get a sense of what you can actually expect from them in similar situations. We'll look at all 3 Eagle Civs separately as well, so hopefully this will also be a nice summary or refresher on the relative strength of each Eagle Warrior and how they compare. I generally like to start these comparisons with the units head-to-head, since I think it gives a quick and dirty summary of their strength, though this time that's maybe unfair, given the Ghulam has a bonus against Eagle Warriors. With similar total resources, the Ghulam pretty easily wins in Castle Age, given its extra damage. Contrast that with Imperial Age though, where the Mayan Eagle Warrior surprisingly wins one-on-one, and even from this test alone, you can get a sense of why players often say the Mayan Eagle Warrior is the strongest of the 3. Of course, we need to keep upgrade costs in mind, in which case countering Ghulams with Mayan Eagle Warriors sounds a bit tricky. Thinking about it more though, Mayans don't really have any of the best counters to Ghulams, with no hand cannoneers or cavalry, so this is a tough matchup for Mayans all around, and maybe Eagles are one of your better options. Even with the Ghulam's extra pass-through damage in a large group, Mayan Elite Eagle Warriors still win, so at least in their case fully upgraded, the Elite Ghulam is clearly weaker, even with its bonus damage. At the same time, other American Civs fare worse in that matchup, so in this case, the civilization we're talking about has a large impact on the outcome. Now, what about the champion line? I would say one of the least intuitive parts of the game's counter system is that the champion line has huge bonus damage against eagles, and trying to fight swordsmen with eagles is a mistake you see low elo players try now and again with disastrous results. Of course, that's not true of the Ghulam, which isn't technically an eagle warrior, as similar as it might seem. Long swordsmen, for example, dominate eagles in Castle Age, whereas the Ghulam and a long swordsman are about equal. From this, you could argue you're getting something similar to an eagle warrior while standing up to one of their most threatening counters. Of course, considering their slow movement rate and how much more food-intensive longswords are compared to a Ghulam, I really don't like them as a counter unit, unless you have a very good infantry civ like Goths or Japanese, and the Ghulam is also much more useful for raiding than the longsword. Switching to Imperial Age, the two-handed swordsmen win one-on-one against either unit, though do noticeably better against eagles, again highlighting the importance of the hidden bonus damage. Of course, champions are a pretty good counter against both after the Ghulam's recent nerf, even before factoring in their cheaper cost with supplies and much lower gold cost. Even in a large-scale fight, the pass-through damage doesn't overcome their disadvantage against even generic champions. The similar but distinct Samurai, though, has a bit of a twist. They deal bonus damage against unique units, which eagles are not unique enough to receive. That ends up flipping the result, with Ghulams this time being quickly overpowered, and eagles actually a little better in that matchup, though obviously still not ideal. Moving on from infantry though, which generally went in favor of the Ghulam, let's take a look at the eagle's biggest specialty, monks. Eagle warriors have some innate conversion resistance, and in this test, you can see the Ghulams are universally converted first, with many of the eagles taking the maximum conversion time the game allows, even without faith researched. Throwing in their bonus damage against monks as well, this is one case where the two units are really not all that comparable. Moving on to the Ghulam's specialty though, now let's see how they both do against archers. This is billed as the unit's specialty, and yet in Castle Age they're identical to eagles in how many arrows they can take, which also happens to be about the same tankiness as a fully upgraded knight as well. Fighting up close though, you of course have their massive bonus, as well as the pass-through damage, which is especially useful against archers, given they tend to be bunched up. In this test, the Ghulam end with significantly more HP and also defeated their enemy much faster, which has its own advantages. Switching to Imperial Age though, the Ghulam actually falls behind all except the Aztec Eagle and how many arrows they can take from an Arbalester, and in fact it's the Inca Eagle warriors that shine here. Even fighting up close, while the Ghulam may defeat archers faster, they end up losing a greater percentage of their HP compared to Mayans and Incas in the same sort of test. This surprised me a bit given the extra bonus damage, but in fairness, Mayans and Incas have some pretty solid unique techs to help their eagles shrug off Arbalesters, and obviously compared to most infantry, any of these are great options. In fact, against archers and their different variations, the comparison between the two units is pretty much spot on. Somewhat related, and again thanks to their high pierce armor, another famous role of the Eagle Warrior is as a raiding unit, assuming you have a healthy supply of gold coming in. In this case, again, the comparison is apt, though between taking more arrows and moving a bit faster, in a vacuum, I'd personally take the Mayan Eagle Warrior over the elite Ghulam. Even Aztec elite Eagle Warriors are going to take out villagers in one fewer attack, so there's an argument to be made for them as a standout as well. But to be clear, in all cases you're getting a strong raiding unit, assuming you have the gold to spend. But now we come to the most interesting comparison in my opinion, which is cavalry. Usually, spear units are good against cavalry, and eagles have a bonus against them, whereas Ghulam are allegedly weak to them, with that being cited specifically. To start with the knight in Castle Age, both the Ghulam and eagle take 6 hits with all upgrades, but Castle Age Ghulam require 5 more of their own attacks to bring a knight down. With balanced resources, that means Ghulam lose, and remember, you need a castle to create them, so this is a tough matchup to even attempt in the first place. Eagle warriors, on the other hand, are about evenly balanced with knights when resources are considered. I sometimes think of them as a mildly anti-cavalry unit because they have some bonus damage, though in many cases that extra attack only really brings them up to being on par with each other. In fact, I'd say the main advantage eagles have over knights is just that 2 eagles cost significantly less food than 1 knight, reducing the number of farms that you need in early Castle Age. Even more revealing in my opinion, light cavalry trades about 1-to-1 with an eagle warrior, but actually beats a Ghulam 1-on-1. Considering even a fully upgraded light cavalry is a reasonable soft counter to Ghulam in Castle Age, it's pretty obvious the weak to cavalry description really does fit in a way that it doesn't for eagles. Jumping to Imperial Age, again an elite Ghulam survives about the same number of hits as a non-Mayan elite eagle warrior, but it's just dealing so much less damage back that it's noticeably the worst out of the group, and again in this case would be nowhere near cost effective. In contrast, eagles come close to dealing an equivalent value of damage to the cavalier, implying this is a pretty balanced fight. Logically then, of course, Paladins absolutely crush the elite Ghulam, and only Mayan Eagle Warriors can hold up to Paladins long term, though you would need to outnumber the Paladins by quite a bit to actually make that work. Likewise, the Hussar is again a surprisingly good match for the Ghulam, and actually wins one-on-one. Now, you do have camels as Hindustani, so maybe you're less worried about cavalry than American civs would be, but especially late game, the Ghulam hasn't matched up well against any cavalry we've seen. So that's the main unit types I wanted to highlight, and coming back to the original question, is the Ghulam just an Eagle Warrior for Hindustani? I would say that's basically a fair assessment in Castle Age, where Eagles have an edge against cavalry and monks that the Ghulam doesn't, but otherwise you're getting something functionally similar, and even a little better against archers in the swordsman line. In Imperial Age, I would say they start to separate a bit, with top-tier Mayan Eagle Warriors standing out against even archers, though considering upgrade costs, Elite Ghulam is still giving great value, and are arguably a comparable but cheaper version. You still have to be careful around cavalry and against other infantry, but then you also have to consider their role in the Hindustanis' tech tree. Hindustanis are a camel and gunpowder civilization, which together is a combo that can usually handle infantry and cavalry just fine, but is easily countered by mass archers. It would take a lot of gold to combine them all at the same time, but I really see that as where the Ghulam shines, giving at least something to threaten mass archers and protect those core units. In fact, I think the Ghulam is no small part of why Hindustanis are so strong at the moment, as against cavalry civs you have camels, and against archer civs you have the Ghulam, which together give a very straightforward game plan to counter many popular civs that specialize in either cavalry or archers. I wouldn't say you have to make them every game, especially against a cavalry civ, but it's certainly a potent option and in many ways a more versatile anti-archer unit than Elite Skirmisher, for example. That'll do it for this one though, and hopefully that helps put the unit and the different Eagle Warriors into a bit better perspective. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.